A mysterious sex box? A 150-year-long dream? And so many time loops. These sci-fi movies still have audiences scratching their heads. Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey is considered one of the great sci-fi classics, and one of the most revered works in film history. The 1968 picture pushed the boundaries of special effects, lifted sci-fi from B-movie schlock to serious art, and made everyone afraid of killer computers. After escaping the clutches of HAL 9000, astronaut Dave Bowman is sucked into a trippy tunnel right outside Jupiter. He's assaulted with all sorts of lights and crazy colors before winding up in a cold, soulless hotel room. In just a matter of minutes, Bowman turns into an old man, and that's when a black monolith appears at the foot of his bed. These monoliths have been turning up the entire movie, sparking new stages of evolution whenever they appear. When Dave reaches out to the big black obelisk, he turns into a glowing space fetus. This magical floating baby is known as the Star Child, and in the film's final sequence, it floats out into the galaxy looking down at Earth. Did Dave literally transform into an alien infant? Is the Star Child symbolic of humanity's next stage in evolution? Could it mean something else altogether? It doesn't seem like we'll ever know for sure.
Its origin and purpose, still a total mystery.
AI, artificial intelligence, is a thoroughly depressing affair. After all, this is the film where Haley Joel Osment breaks down crying because his mom abandoned him in the woods. Granted, Osment is playing a lifelike android named David, but still, you can't just toss a heartbroken mecha into the wild. After all, the world is cruel to little androids. Poor David is bullied by human kids, sees his fellow robots ripped apart, and eventually finds himself stuck at the bottom of the ocean, desperately wishing he could become a real boy. It's a wish that will never come true. And then there's that ending. After 2,000 years of solitude, David is rescued by evolved AI. The creatures take pity on the little mecha, and using advanced tech, they give David one last day with his mother. That's how the movie ends, with David cuddling his mom, happy at last. Some casual viewers had no problem with the ending, but many sci-fi fans were outraged at the shift in tone, placing the blame squarely on director Steven Spielberg. AI was originally a Stanley Kubrick project, so many assumed Spielberg screwed up Kubrick's dark project by tacking on the sappy finale. As Spielberg eventually pointed out, however, the whole David gets to spend one last day with his mother thing was actually Kubrick's idea. More importantly, it isn't a happy ending. The evolved mechas are granting David's wish because they're about to shut him down forever. They're going to kill this little kid, and we're watching his final hallucination before he's put down. If that's not a Kubrick ending, then we don't know what is. Richard Kelly's cult classic Donnie Darko hit theaters in 2001, but fans are still trying to solve this incredibly complex sci-fi flick to this day. The plot follows the titular Donnie, an angsty high schooler who narrowly avoids death by a falling jet engine thanks to a 6-foot-tall rabbit named Frank. If that isn't crazy enough, the film soon introduces the concepts of time travel and alternate dimensions, turning a coming-of-age tale into a cryptic head-scratcher.
You're weird.
Sorry.
Yeah, that was a compliment.
There's a lot of questions raised by Donnie Darko that you probably won't see the answers to on your first viewing. We know Donnie has to stop an apocalypse, but what exactly does that have to do with wormholes? How do deceased characters come back to life? What's up with that demonic bunny? And why is Donnie wearing that stupid human suit? It's all so complicated that Kelly felt the need to release a director's cut to help fans put the pieces together. Donnie Darko is a movie that demands rewatch after rewatch. And while it's possible to gain a decent understanding of the plot, there's no denying that it's a mad movie. Before introducing the world to the Cheddar Goblin in his 2018 film, Mandy, director Panos Cosmatos broke onto the cinematic scene with Beyond the Black Rainbow. This psychedelic nightmare of a movie features a telekinetic girl and a slasher scientist who find themselves in a battle of life and death. It's been compared to films like El Topo and Eraserhead, and according to its creator, the film's screenplay is only 11 pages long. As you might expect, this is a movie that takes its sweet time, drowning audiences with surreal images and sounds that make you wonder if you're watching a film or going on an acid trip. The movie prompts so many questions. What's really happening at the Arborea Institute? What's up with that glowing crystal? And what exactly happens to the villainous Dr. Nile after he goes beyond the Black Rainbow? By the time you come down from this incredibly disturbing trip, you'll either immediately want more, or you'll have completely lost your mind. Ex Machina is a creepy film that examines what might happen when humanity finally creates artificial intelligence. And what might happen? Nothing good. That's a lesson that Caleb learns the hard way after he's invited to participate in an advanced Turing test by billionaire tech genius Nathan. The programming prodigy wants Caleb to see if his imprisoned android, an AI named Ava, is capable of independent thought. The only hitch is that Ava looks like Alicia Vikander, and Caleb starts to fall for her.
You're impressed?
Yes. Although?
There's a qualification to you being impressed?
Ava and Caleb seem to grow close, and after realizing Nathan is a monster who's creating female androids for his own sick gratification, Caleb decides to break Ava loose. He hopes they can run away together, and Ava seems totally cool with Caleb's plan. But once she's free, she kills Nathan and locks up Caleb, leaving him to die as she sets out into the real world. Her decision left a lot of viewers baffled. Why kill such a nice guy? Well, Caleb might not have been as glaringly evil as Nathan, but he only treats Ava like a human once he starts falling in love with her. Even though he's more polite, he still views Ava like an object in the same way that Nathan does. He only decides to help her escape after Ava flirts with him and makes him feel special. Meanwhile, she's tired of being a slave, so it's time for her to finally take control. Directed by Christopher Nolan, Inception is a bizarre blockbuster where cities fold on top of themselves, trains appear out of nowhere, and hotels spin around like crashing cars. In other words, it's a movie about the power of dreams. Inception takes place in the subconscious, where rules can be bent and mental barriers manipulated. But for all its incredible imagery, the film sparked so much conversation because of a simple spinning top. The plot of this sci-fi epic follows a group of thieves, led by the enigmatic Dominic Cobb, as they try to implant an idea in the mind of a young business heir. If Cobb can complete the mission, he'll have his murky past erased, and he'll finally get to return to the US and see his kids again. And wouldn't you know it, the mission is a success, and in the film's final moments, Cobb is reunited with his children. Maybe. There's actually a good chance that Cobb might be asleep, stuck in limbo for the rest of his life. Everything depends on that infamous top. If Cobb is in the real world, it will topple over eventually. But if he's still asleep, it will keep on spinning forever. The movie cuts right as the top starts to wobble, which resulted in endless debate about Cobb's fate. According to Christopher Nolan, however, it's not such a big deal if the top falls over or not. As the director explained, the important thing for Cobb is that he's back with his kids. Whether this is reality or it's all in his head, the only thing that matters is that it's real for him. Finding love is hard enough, but if you've only got 45 days to find a mate or be morphed into an animal, that makes things a lot more difficult. Unfortunately for poor David, if he doesn't find a partner in a few weeks, he'll be tossed into a mysterious machine and turned into a lobster. However, things start looking up when he meets the short-sighted woman. In this society, partners have to share a physical similarity, and since they both suffer from vision problems, it seems they're a match. Until she is blinded. This leaves the lovers in a tricky situation. If they want to make this work, David will have to blind himself too.
I'm going to do it with a knife.
Do you want me to come with you?
I'd rather you didn't.
As the short-sighted woman waits at a diner booth, David stands in front of a bathroom mirror with a steak knife just centimeters from his own eyeball. Before we can see anything though, the film cuts to the short-sighted woman sitting at her table. She waits and waits for David to return, but the film goes black before audiences can learn if David did the bloody deed. Not even the cast and crew of The Lobster know the truth. Speaking with Entertainment Weekly, Colin Farrell revealed that director Yorgos Lanthimos and screenwriter Efthimis Filippo never came up with an answer for the film's ending. As for himself, Farrell can see it going either way. He joked, "Honest to God, part of me thinks he does it. Then part of me thinks that when the camera cuts back to Rachel Weisz, I'm already in a f***ing Uber, heading down the road as fast as I can." The actor also raised the possibility that David could have faked blindness, so he could be with his lover while still maintaining his eyesight. Whatever your interpretation might be, it probably says a lot about the way you view romance. Written, directed by, and starring Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, 2017's The Endless follows two brothers who escaped a UFO cult when they were younger, but are lured back by a strange videotape. Once they arrive, freaky things start happening, and they start to get the feeling that there's something evil hiding in the darkness. By the time the credits roll, The Endless has posed a lot of complicated questions. What's up with the entity and the time loops? What's with those freaky statues? And why is there a crossover with Benson and Moorhead's earlier movie, Resolution? Well, the invisible demon haunting our heroes is a stand-in for horror movie audiences who like their stories to have dark endings. And as it turns out, the creature drew the brothers back to the cult in hopes of trapping them in a time loop. This particular desert is crowded with different loops, some which last seconds and others which stretch on for decades. If you die in the loop or submit yourself to the beast, you'll be trapped forever. That's why the cult members look so young. They've been repeating the same cycle every 10 years. At the end of each loop, the entity tears them to shreds and they start over again. It's all part of the creature's need for scary stories with violent endings. It turns out that the guys from Resolution are stuck in a time loop of their own, a revelation that adds new depth to the 2012 film. As for those monuments, they all represent the evil entity. They were constructed by the victims stuck in the loops, and they're meant to express how these poor souls viewed the demon. Judging by the apparent age of some of these sculptures, it seems like this interdimensional creature has been trapping people for a very long time. Christopher Nolan's 2020 sci-fi flick Tenet just might be the filmmaker's most confusing movie yet. Met with lukewarm reception by critics, Tenet is a high-concept puzzle box that's more interested in giving the viewer clues to solve it rather than answers.
What the hell happened here?
It hasn't happened yet.
The protagonist is a CIA agent who finds a mysterious artifact during a mission. When the artifact is stolen from him, he's recruited by a time-traveling organization called Tenet to retrieve it. The protagonist and his handler Neil travel the globe to recover the artifact, but nothing and no one is as it seems. That sounds straightforward enough, but things are never so simple in a Christopher Nolan movie, and the ending of Tenet is one of his most confounding. The film's core narrative centers around the concept of time inversion. That means the entropy of objects from the future can move backwards, so things from the future can get brought into the past. Those in the present move forward, while the future moves backward, at least in the present. To achieve this effect of two opposite movements at the same time, Nolan shot the time inversion action sequences twice, one normally and the other with the actors moving backwards. Getting your head around the concept of time inversion is the first key to unlocking the rest of Tenet. Most viewers are bound to get lost their first time around, as the movie breaks down linear time to render it a circle. That's why even the movie's biggest defenders say it takes another trip around to really get it to click. Whether it's the sight of a skeletal bear or a man turned into a fungus, Annihilation is a movie that sticks in your mind. But even more compelling than the gigantic sharkagator is the film's ambiguous ending. After heading deep into the shimmer, an ever-growing electromagnetic wave that mixes and matches DNA, biology professor Lena encounters a metallic humanoid that tries to copy her likeness. Using a grenade, Lena kills the doppelganger and burns down the shimmer. But while she saved the world, that doesn't mean it's smooth sailing for our hero. Lena's whole reason for heading into the shimmer was to discover what happened to her husband, Kane. He's a soldier who went MIA after heading into the world's freakiest light show, and then a year later, he suddenly appeared out of nowhere, deathly ill. Hoping to save his life and ease her guilt, Lena accompanies 4 other women into the shimmer to figure out exactly what's going on. What she learns is haunting. The Kane back at the hospital is almost certainly a doppelganger, much like the one that tried to take Lena's place. However, there's something odd about the Lena who finally escapes the shimmer. When she hugs her clone husband, we see the color in her eyes dance and wave, much like the lights in the shimmer. Did the real Lena make it back home? Or was she replaced by the doppelganger somewhere during their struggle? Or perhaps the shimmer altered her DNA and turned her into something new? Whatever happened, Lena is a new person, forever changed after literally confronting herself. Inspired by the French short film La Jetée, Terry Gilliam brings a fresh set of eyes to an old-fashioned time travel tale in 12 Monkeys. The killer cast and gorgeous production design are enough to get viewers to still return to this 1995 classic, even if the ending is a bit mind-boggling. In a post-apocalyptic 2035, James Cole is a prison inmate sent back in time to stop the virus that destroyed humanity. He travels back to 1996 to track down the source of the virus, but is continuously haunted by dreams of a little boy seeing a man shot at an airport. In the end, he finally catches up with Dr. Peters, who's heading to an airport to start the virus outbreak. Cole tries to stop the doctor and instead is shot by the police. As it turns out, his dreams weren't dreams at all. They were memories of his younger self watching his future self get killed. The purpose of Cole's tragic life is just one of many questions left at the end of 12 Monkeys. We never get to see if any of Cole's actions changed the timeline, but it's heavily implied that his actions were fruitless. Nothing will change. The past stays the same, and the future is unavoidable. The whole affair is a bleak take on time travel that appreciates repeat viewings.
The movie never changes. It can't change, but every time you see it, it seems different because you are different.
Stalker is a classic, but by today's standards, it's definitely a slow movie. Watching Andrei Tarkovsky's 1979 cerebral work of post-apocalyptic sci-fi is a test of patience, but for those who have stuck with it, the reward has been great. Over the years, many people have watched this movie and walked away with different stabs at its meaning. A deeply interpretive film, Stalker is as confounding as it is profound. Based on Arkady and Boris Strugatsky's novella, Roadside Picnic, three men, the writer, the professor, and the stalker, go into the radioactive zone, which contains a mythical wish-granting room. The trio ventures through a dangerous land of paranormal anomalies and unexplained phenomena, all while philosophically sparring with each other and exploring their motivations for the journey. When they finally reach the room, however, there is an inexplicable anticlimax as the three men sit in silence. What happens inside the room and the significance of their journey is left entirely ambiguous. What exactly is the zone, and how has it changed the people who dare enter it? The final shots of the movie show that the stalker's daughter has now gained superhuman powers, which are implied to be a result of his journey. This question and others are asked from the very beginning of Stalker, and its lack of answers still sparks vigorous discussion over 40 years later. If you're at all familiar with predestination paradoxes, you might have some idea of where this Ethan Hawke sci-fi thriller is headed. Predestination is based off of Robert A. Heinlein's 1959 science fiction short story, All You Zombies. This 2014 sci-fi puzzle stars Hawke as Agent Doe, a disfigured time-traveling agent who moonlights as a barkeep after a failed attempt to stop the bomber that wounded him. One day in 1970, Agent Doe meets a man called John, who reveals that he was born an intersex female named Jane and had a child who was stolen by an unknown man. Complications during birth led to forced gender reassignment surgery, so Jane began living as John. Agent Doe takes John back in time to 1963 to get revenge on the man who created this situation, only to realize that John is the person who got Jane, himself, pregnant. So, Agent Doe takes Jane's baby further back in time to 1945, and the child grows up into Jane. This is the predestination paradox, and it only gets more complicated as the movie continues. By the end, it is revealed the movie is about a single character. The agent and the bomber are also the same person as John, Jane, and the baby.
And it's a paradox, right? But it can't be paradoctored.
After learning who he will become, the agent kills the bomber and tries to close his own loop. That's where predestination ends, leaving us to imagine John's endless nightmare and wonder about the logic and existential questions behind it all. Robert Pattinson fans might follow the dreamy actor to the ends of the earth, but apparently not beyond our solar system. At least, that's how the reaction to 2018's High Life would make it seem. While many critics found Claire Denis' erotic sci-fi drama mesmerizing and thought-provoking, a majority of the audience seemed to disagree. This is likely due to the slow pacing and cryptic methods of storytelling that Denis utilizes. Monty is a criminal on death row who's been placed on a ship full of convicted killers heading towards a black hole. He and the others are subject to experiments run by the mysterious Dr. Dibbs, who controls sexual activity on the ship. Monty manages to father a child, and he works to keep himself and his baby alive amidst the intense psychological pressure of Dr. Dibbs' experiments. High Life is focused on sex, but many viewers are still unsure about what exactly the movie has to say about sexuality thanks to its dreamlike quality. Its most puzzling aspect is its representation of the box, a room that the prisoners use to stimulate themselves. Denis described herself as pro-sex in an interview with Slate and clarified that she sees the box as something positive. However, in an interview with GQ, she also said that she herself doesn't actually know what High Life is about, saying, "I'm not interested in understanding, honestly. It's not a joke. I don't need to understand. I need to feel good about something. That's all I need." Although Cameron Crowe's 2001 sci-fi adventure was a critical punchline in its day, Vanilla Sky has gone on to gain a cult following. This ambitious thriller is an English-language remake of Alejandro Amenábar's Open Your Eyes, a trippy warning about the dangers of technology and vanity. Narcissistic playboy David Ames is in a horrific car accident after his jealous girlfriend Julie discovers his relationship with another woman, Sophia. After recovering, David rejoins society and starts dating Sophia again, but his reality starts to disintegrate in strange ways. The ending of Vanilla Sky reveals that the movie has taken place inside David's lucid dream that has been going on for 150 years. After disfiguring his face and losing Sophia in reality, David opted to exist in a cryogenic hypersleep inside a dream, where he can live a fantasy life until the technology needed to repair his face is perfected. His idealized fantasy world gets ruined by a glitch in the system, so David is given the choice to either stay in the dream or leap off the roof to break the illusion and return to reality.
Look at us. I'm frozen and you're dead. And I love you.
What David ultimately chooses and what it represents is unclear. He decides to jump and break free from his dream, but he doesn't know for certain if he will wake up, or what the world will even look like now after so much time. In the final moments, we hear a woman's voice call to him, but it's not clear whether he has made it to reality or if he has finally passed away. The bittersweet romantic drama, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, is a collaboration between surrealism experts Charlie Kaufman and Michel Gondry. When Joel and Clementine break up, they both decide to undergo a procedure to have their memories of each other erased. The majority of the film takes place in Joel's mind as he recalls his doomed relationship with Clementine as the memories get deleted. After going through the procedure, he retains one vague recollection of Clementine telling him to meet her in Montauk, where they first met. Despite the procedure's success, both lovers find each other again in Montauk and start again, even after learning the truth of their chaotic and painful relationship. This might seem to defeat the point of the sci-fi elements, or even the story as a whole, but it speaks to the movie's central theme of love. These two have a special connection, and nothing can get in the way of that. It's a hopeful ending, although seeing the way Clementine and Joel's relationship plays out makes one wonder if they're doomed to repeat the same mistakes. Should these two really be together? Or is the love that was strong enough to bring them back together also enough to break their old dynamic? According to Vanity Fair, Kaufman originally conceived of a darker ending in which Joel walks away after learning the truth. Knowing that Gondry and Kaufman disagreed over whether Joel and Clementine should end up together further enhances the uncertainty of what comes next for this eccentric couple.